Hi, Mr. Cox, and welcome back to BTEC Construction. Today we are going to be looking at the topic of walls. Now, as always, during the PowerPoints, we always have a look at the range of questions, the topics that we've covered in the past that we are trying to get familiar with. So have a look at these questions. Do pause the PowerPoint here and give these questions a go. The following slide will show you the answers to the questions. Okay, what are the three main forces that work in the building? We've got the live, the dynamic, and the impact load. What part of the buildings do you transfer the weight to? That always goes down to the foundations. What does slump testing test? That tests concrete. If you've not seen that video, do go on YouTube, do have a look at it. What is the U value a measure of? That is a heat loss, how much heat is lost from the building. And we know that when your building loses very little heat, the U value is very low. If your building loses a lot of heat, the U value is very high. Where would you find insulation for a building? You'd find it in the walls, you'd find it in the roof, and you'd find it in the floor. What are the main materials you can grade? Aggregate, where we're looking at stone. You can grade different kinds of stone. Continue the abbreviations, British standards. We covered that in the past in the other PowerPoints, looking at every building material has to have a certain standard so it can do its job properly. Name a fire-resistant materials used in a building. Okay, we can have concrete, bricks, plasterboard. These are things that do not burn, and intermescent paint. What is a function of intermescent paint? Intermescent paint is quite often used in ships. It's quite often used in football stadiums where they spray beams and they spray other items with this item. And if heat hits intermittent paint, it swells up and it creates a barrier between the fire and the actual item it's trying to protect. Okay, how can you test concrete? We've got the slump test, which we've already mentioned, and we've got the compression test. Now, have a look at these pictures. What do you see? If I move my mouse over here, you'll see different kind of bricks, but have a look on the inside of the bricks. That is something called mortar. A mortar is what we use to be able to build the house. We put the mortar on top of a layer of bricks and then we put the next layer on top. Over here, we've got different kinds of what we call pointing. This wall has got something called flush pointing, where it's just flush. The water can run straight down. Other point is called bucket handle or tool handle, or flush, which is a slight angle, or weather stroke, where the water will run down the wall and it will run away from the wall. The whole purpose of the pointing of the walls, the pointing is the concrete that's in the middle and what we do to it. You can have different effects to it. That is called pointing, and we're going to look at that later on. So the purpose of today's lesson is to have a look at the different surface finishes that can be applied to walls, but also the function of the wall, what the wall does, and what the wall can actually do for the building. So what is the purpose of the wall? The purpose of the wall, to be honest, has got 4 main bullet points. I know there's 5 here, but one of them is repeated. Number 1 is to keep the house warm. It's to stop heat loss, but it's also to keep the cold out in winter. The purpose of the walls is to spread the weight of the building all the way down to the foundations. The purpose of the wall is to keep the horrible weather out, to stop you from rain and wind. And I've mentioned intruders there, and that comes to play in number 5 as well. The purpose of the wall for number 4 is when you're going to stop the sound from traveling from one room to another, so you get privacy. Last but not least, we've mentioned shelter and security. They've been summed up in the first 4, but shelter, you are sheltered inside the building, and security, it stops people getting into your house. Okay, what are the materials that we use to make a wall? Okay, when we make a wall, we've got different kinds of brickwork. But the thing I mentioned right at the start of the PowerPoint is the kind of pointing. Once you've done the brickwork, there's little gaps in between the bricks. And what we have to do is a type of pointing, so as the rain comes straight down the building, the water can run away from the walls. You don't want water to remain in the gaps of the walls, because the water remains in the gaps, you end up with something called freeze-thaw action, where water seeps into the gap of the wall, and it will freeze, and it'll expand, and that'll break away slowly bits of your bricks. There are different kinds of way that you can do the mortar. You can do thin masonry mortar, where it's about 2 to 3 millimeters thick, and quite often they do this when they're building the houses. Sometimes they can have what we call fast setting mortar, where that mortar that's in between the bricks sets really, really fast, so you can put more layers of bricks on top of each other, so you can build the house higher. Now, as a person, if you're doing brickwork, there is something you've got to remember. You've got to remember as well that when you're doing all this brickwork, that you have a musculoskeleton. You have a physical body. And if you're doing brickwork all day, you do have to give yourself a rest, because if you don't give yourself a rest, you are going to end up poorly and you're going to get a muscle strain. But it also means as well that sometimes you'll not be able to work. So as a builder, that is something to think about. Now, mortar has different jobs and can be mixed in different ways. The exam board have said that it is indicated mortar by the letter G, but mortar can be made at a factory and is brought on site by the big cement mixers, or you can actually make the mortar on site. And as always, you would test it with either a slump test or a compression test. Okay, what are the wall finishes? On the outside of a house, you can render it. The house on the right-hand side, you may not be able to tell, but this house on the right-hand side is actually a SIPS building, sustainable insulated panels. And that means it's made from a timber frame with insulation in between the two timber pieces. The outside has been what we call rendered. It has a rendering on the outside. On the right-hand side, we have what we call fascia bricks. And on the left-hand side, we have the mortar, which is a concrete mix, which is spread across, which gives it a lovely, smooth finish. Now, we have mentioned the brickwork has to be pointed. It has to be finished off. So you can have weatherstruck, bucket handle, or flush pointing. Pointing, as you can see on this wall here, is what I call bucket handle. Sometimes that bucket handle is called a tool. So if you've ever seen a bucket handle has got a curve. But you can buy a metal tool that kind of goes across and it goes back up again, and you can scrape it down the middle of the brick, and that creates a perfect curve for the water to run down and to water to run away from the wall. Okay, I want you to have a look at these questions, and in a minute I want you to pause the video. What is the purpose of the wall? Name two types of pointing. What is the function of a weep hole? Okay, pause the video here, and then we'll have a look at some answers. Okay, welcome back. What is the purpose of the wall? The purpose of the wall is to withstand heat, leaving and coming too much cold coming in the house. It's also to transfer the weight of the building down to the foundations. We've mentioned this, it's shelter and security, and it's also to reduce the sound traveling. Can you name two types of pointing? We've mentioned weatherstruck, bucket handle, flush, and recessed. As always, in construction, if you get to a word that you do not understand, you're meant to Google it, you're meant to have a look, you're meant to have a research or find what this word means. Quite often in an exam, you'll not fall down on the exam question, you'll fall down because you don't know what individual words mean. What is the function of a weep hole? Now, a weep hole is something you find towards the bottom of the wall, about 2 bricks high, or really on the ground, and it's like a little vent. And that little vent stops moisture from building up on the external and internal wall. And that weep hole, as it says, allows the water and the moisture to weep out. When you cry, you weep, and the water comes out. The weep holes are designed in the buildings so it allows the moisture to go out. Have a look around your house. Have a look around some big buildings. When you walk around them again, look close to the ground, about a brick from the floor or 2 bricks up. And what you find is a little plastic air vent, and they are called weep holes. Okay, we've also mentioned quite often different terminology to do with walls. There is something called a wall opening. Now, wall opening is where there's a gap in the wall, which is going to be a purpose for something else. Now, wall opening might be where the doors might go. The opening, as you can tell, is just where the gap is. The wall opening might be where the windows go. All right, but what is the function of a wall opening? A function might be to let the sunlight in. The function might just be to look nice. If you've got a big veranda and you've got big doors that open and close, it might be just for aesthetics, to look nice. We mentioned sunlight, to look nice. Last but not least, wall openings are used for ventilation. Where your windows are, you can open your windows when it's too hot and let hot air out, but also you can let the fumes out. And if you're anything like me, when you're cooking, I burn most things, so I have to open the windows to let everything out. Over here on the right hand side, there's quite a lot of words. Threshold, lintel, sills, weep hole, cavity closers, and cavity trays. I want you to just Google right now what these words mean. And when you Google what these words mean, as it were, as normal, pause the video here, Google what these words mean, because later on there's some worksheets for you to fill in. Okay, welcome back. Here we have an exam question. This exam question has been on the exam probably 3 or 4 times now. It shows you, as always, they'll ask you to draw a cross section. if you had a cake and you cut it in half, you would see the cross section of all the layers of a cake. Now, the cross section of this wall, you'll see an external wall, you'll see an internal wall, you'll see a damp-proof membrane. Now, have a look at this wall. Have a look at the patterns that are on the material, because that will always give you a clue of what the items are. Write down I, three I's and an IV. Have a look at the keywords on the left-hand side. Try writing down where you think the answers go, because the following slide is going to show you the answers. Here we go. The first one in the middle is what we call a cavity fill. They fill that little gap there to fill it up. Damp-proof membrane on the right-hand side, that layer that goes all the way across and goes up. That will be on the inside of a wall, and we've talked in the past about the solid flooring and the purpose of a damp-proof membrane. We have blockwork or concrete, and we have sand and sand bindings, and often we have concrete at the base as well for the substructure. Okay, this is the bit I want you to work on. Print this page, have a look at it. We've mentioned before about keywords, and keywords are the secret to be able to answer the exam questions. When you can master keywords, you can master what they are. The lintel, you'll quite often find a lintel above a window. Yes, it gives structural support to the window. The window sill, when the water runs down the window sill allows the water to run away from the building. The threshold, you'll see the door, you can see a little gap there. Where the door closes, there's a little gap there. The threshold is when you step into the house. Why is it not flat? Why is there a bit of a 2-inch gap that you can step over? What would happen if there's no gap at all and it poured down and rained? Last but not least, what is a cavity tray? Try the questions on the right hand side. Try this page as well. Then give it a go for the other places. We talked about wall openings, and this has got a cavity closer. You would put that in before you'd fit a window into the place. It closes the cavity of the wall to stop any gaps before you inlay a window. Now, I mentioned before about weep holes. You'll see on the building here, they are there and there and there. They're minuscule, very small shapes, but these minuscule holes for wall openings, they are there so you can actually allow the moisture to weep away from the building. Quite often you find them quite close to the floor. Now, what do aesthetics play a part? What is aesthetics? What is blockwork? What is brickwork? What are the two different finishes that you could have? As always, I've always recommended this, and I'll say it again and again, corner notes. Corner notes are an integral part of your revision. This will change your GCSE grade at least by 1 grade higher on the exam. It is a proven fact. I've done this with 7 different GCSE groups. It is a proven fact that when you do corner notes, it will increase your GCSE grade. On the right-hand side, you read through your revision notes and you put bullet points. What are the key things that we're talking about? On the left-hand side, you can put some keywords or what questions the examiner might ask you. They might ask you, what is DPM? What is a cavity fill? What is the function of, that's quite often the terminology that they use, what is the function of a certain thing? At the bottom, sum it up if you're going to sum it up to a child. If you're going to sum it up to a little 5-year-old, how could you sum up the topic? You see, if you can sum it up to a 5-year-old, you have grasped what's going on. Last but not least, keywords again. While we're doing it again and again and again, when you repeat the process, it goes deeper and deeper into your mind. Last but not least, this was BTEC Construction. This is Mr. Cox, and I hope that you have enjoyed today's item, and we'll see you soon.